Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, July 15th, 2016. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Aura News, where we bring you today's top stories translated into English every weeknight. U.S. Ambassador Donald Lu commented today on the judicial reform. For the first time, the U.S. ambassador, using a harsh tone, said both parties are afraid of the reform and are both working against it. He called the Prime Minister and Democratic Party chairman to meet on Monday, as according to him, there is still time to find consensus. I think there is one thing we can agree upon. We are all frustrated with and tired of Albania's political leaders. Today, Mr. Basha said that the opposition had put a valid proposal on the table. I told Mr. Basha that his proposal was unacceptable to the United States and shows that he broke his commitment to Ambassador Nuland on Sunday. Also today, Mr. Rama announced that he has finished negotiating with the opposition and that he would accept any opposition demand that is approved by the EU and the US. I reject this role. Albania's leaders must be held responsible for solving Albania's political problems. I propose a simple solution. I challenge the Prime Minister and the head of the opposition to meet face-to-face on Monday and to publicly promise that they will not leave the room until they have a solution for every last issue of this reform. Let us see who is really in favor of supporting a compromise. This will solve the problem in one of two ways. Either they will find a solution both the government and the opposition can support, or they will be locked in a room together forever. Several months ago, I asked who is the most afraid of this reform: organized crime bosses, corrupt judges, or criminal politicians. Today, the answer is clear. All of them are afraid, and they are all fighting back. On Thursday, the members of parliament have an opportunity to stand up for the honorable people of Albania who are demanding this reform. There is still time for Mr. Basha and Mr. Rama to find a compromise. If they cannot, Parliament should approve this reform. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. Justice reform will be passed. The only question is whether this Parliament and the leaders of its political parties will be celebrated for its success or blamed for its failure. Edi Rama has left the fate of the judicial reform in the hands of the Democratic Party, declaring today that he will vote on the opposition's draft only if it is approved by the European Union and the United States. In a media outlet, the Prime Minister said that the majority has done everything they could do for the judicial reform. Prime Minister Rama declared he expected the opposition's rejection, but what he did not expect was the opposition's rejection of the EU and the US. I knew this would come. I have told everyone, even the partners. I knew we would be presented with the opposition's fear and absurd conditions. I have made a proposal. We are ready to vote on everything the Democratic Party wants to include in the reform's draft, with the only condition being that the condition is accepted by the United States and the European Union, said Prime Minister Rama, adding that the partners will not allow the deformation of the reform. Prime Minister Rama declared that Albania's joining of the European Union is conditional on adoption of the judicial reform. In the end of his statements, the Prime Minister once again invited the Democratic Party chairman to meet with him. I invite the Democratic Party chairman to meet with me before July 21st, whenever he wants. He can call me for any novelty that is accepted by the US and the EU. I will vote on it without changing anything, said the Prime Minister. The Democratic Party chairman, Luzan Basha, reacted to the Prime Minister's statement, considering it to be hypocrisy. The DP chairman said that Rama has not withdrawn from blocking the reform and finds pretexts to escape responsibility. Mr. Basha added that if the Prime Minister really wants the reform, he has the solution on his table. The Democratic Party chairman made a part of the opposition's proposal public, the part for the international monitoring operation. Mr. Basha clarified that the proposal does not remove the international's monitoring role and gave assurance that their proposal is completely based on the Venice Commission. Mr. Basha declared that the opposition will not become part of a reform that aims for traps and plots for power. Germany, through its foreign official, the Director for Eastern Europe from the German Foreign Ministry, Ernst Reichel, proclaimed a tough stance against the Albanian opposition, accusing it of finding repeated excuses for refusing to adopt the judicial reform. Mr. Reichel said that the opposition is finding confusing reasons in order to not adopt the reform. There is frustration in the international community after several months of political games. Each time the opposition makes a request and a request is refused. Then there is another request and a pretext is found to refuse the reform again. From our experience, we ask whether the opposition has different reasons to not want the reform. I do not know the opposition's reasons, and I do not want to speculate. You know the situation, and I guess that just like me, you are confused about the opposition's stance, he said. When asked by an Aura News journalist whether the majority can ask for the individual votes of the MPs to make the necessary 94 votes for the adoption of the reform, Reichel had this to say. If consensus is not reached, we support adopting the reform with a majority of votes. Reichel considers the justice situation in Albania to be grave and said that only the internationals can make the vetting process with professionalism. Regarding regulating the internationals' exclusiveness in the vetting process with a law, not in the Constitution, Mr. Reichel had this to say. If the internationals' participation in the vetting process is regulated by the Constitution, we cannot speak later about an unconstitutional participation. Reichel called the political parties to be responsible and adopt the judicial reform, as without it, the country would be in serious harm. Albania's political leaders condemned the terrorist attack in Nice, France, where 84 people were killed and 130 others were injured by an armed man driving a truck at full speed into a crowd during Bastille Day celebrations. President of the Republic, Bujar Nishani, expressed his condolences to his French counterpart, Francois Hollande, through a letter which reads, "I was deeply shocked by last night's terrorist attack in Nice, which bloodied France's National Day. I strongly condemn this inhuman act. I and the Albanian people stand by France and by the French people. May God give you and the French people strength and courage to face this situation." The Assembly Speaker, Ilir Meta, sent a message of condolence to the presidents of the French Parliament and Senate. Yesterday's attack is an attack against all European citizens. Albania and its people stand by the French people and are in complete solidarity with Nice's citizens. Terror cannot violate the freedom and values of our democratic societies, so we should intensify cooperation and coordination between our two allied countries in the interest of strengthening security and protection of innocent citizens, read the Assembly Speaker's message. Prime Minister Edi Rama compared the attacker to a Nazi. Terror's strategy will not make the free world kneel down. The new Nazism will be defeated just like the old one. France and freedom will triumph, says the Prime Minister in a posting on his social Facebook account. Democratic Party Chairman Lulzam Basha considers the attack to be barbaric. The shocking event in Nice, where more than 80 people have died, has caused sadness and anger all around the world and in Albania. The treacherous act at a time when French youth, children, men, and women were celebrating their national day has hurt everyone. But I am convinced that France will rise stronger, says the DP chairman. According to the Institute of Statistics data, the Albanian economy grew by 2.96% in the first quarter of this year, which is less than the 3.4% of the government's prediction for 2016. The Institute of Statistics concludes that the main contributors to this growth were commerce, hotels and restaurants, transportation, public administration, education, health, and construction. They noted the sectors which suffered a decline were industry, energy, water, agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. Although the economy is growing, its rates are still considered slow. At an event of the Foreign Ministry, the World Bank Director for Eastern Europe, Ellen Goldstein, analyzed the economic growth progress as insufficient. The red line on the graph you see is not Albania, but the Western Balkans, which is the same thing as Albania. There is growth. There was a decrease during the time of economic crisis. On the other side of the graph, you can see the years you need to reach the European Union level, based on the current economic growth level. The truth is that if you continue with an increase of approximately 3%, you will need about 8 years to reach the EU level. The sooner you grow, the faster you will reach the EU standards, Goldstein said. Albania's economy is expected to grow this year by 3.4%, And according to the European Commission, the growth should accelerate to 3.9% next year and 4.2% in 2018. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Mari, and on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.